What is up, guys? Today we are going to talk about the entire Lich King challenge and the ICC Citadel Solo Adventure. Um, I uploaded another video, but I guess the volume didn't work, so hopefully the volume works now. Um, in this playlist, you'll find all the decks that I use to beat the Lich King with every class, right? Now, and as you know, when you beat the Lich King, uh, you get a pack, but when you beat him with all the classes, you unlock a new portrait for Paladin, which is Arthas, right? Which is the Arthas portrait. I'll show you that in a bit. But every time you beat it with a class, you get one of these little blue glyphs on the sword activated, and when you get all 7, you unlock this final chest right here, right? So the Lich King is a pretty interesting encounter, and to me, this is the best. Like, ICC Citadel, in my mind, has been the best solo adventure experience in Hearthstone so far. Okay, I'm really impressed with it because not only is it just the lore of World of Warcraft, but it also kind of alludes to the way boss mechanics work in World of Warcraft. And I'll talk about that in a little more detail later on, but just basically, like, there's 3 phases of the boss. Um, a starting phase, a add phase, and a DPS phase. And Blizzard has done a really good job of subtly transitioning that into Hearthstone, right? So that said, here's the Lich King. The goal is we want to beat him with every class, right? So here's the Lich King. He has 3 phases. He starts with 30 health and 30 armor, and his starting hero power is this: 2 mana to summon a 2/2 ghoul. Now, for the first 6 turns of the game, he's going to be playing cards and using this hero power trying to kill you, right? And his deck consists of pretty okay cards, right? He has 2 Glacial Shards, which is the one that Quest Mages used to play, the 1 for a 2/1 elemental that freezes an enemy. He has 2 Skeletal Knights, which is 1 for a 2/3 knight, and when that knight dies, it puts a card in our hand, Knights of the Frozen Throne card. He has 2 Obliterate, which is the Death Knight, 2 mana, destroy a minion, they take damage equal to their health. He has 1 Shatter, which is destroying a frozen minion. He has 3 Cold Wraith, and Cold Wraith is a 3/3/4. It's a 3/4 for mage, right? The 3 casting cost 1. If an enemy's frozen, draw a card. And really, that stat line is very nice. He has 3 of those, so he pretty much is always going to find one on turn 3. He has 2 Valkyrie Shadow Guard, and what that is, it's a 3 mana for a 0/5. At the start of the Lich King's turn, he destroys a random enemy minion and the Valkyrie Shadow Guard. He has 2 Looming Presence, which is 3 mana to draw 2 cards, gain 4 armor. He has 2 Anti-Magic Shell, which is the DK card that buffs the board and makes it immune to spells. Well, immune to targeting. He has 2 Grim Necromancer, which is 4 for the 2/4 that adds 2 1/1s. He has 2 Saronite Chain Gangs, which is the 4 for 2/3 taunt that doubles. Basically, it's Feral Wolves for neutrals. He has 2 Water Elementals. He has 2 Sludge Belchers. And everyone knows what Sludge Belcher and Water Elementals are, right? He has 2 Blizzards. Those are all self-explanatory. He has Myexna. And if you didn't play Naxxramas, Myexna is the 6 for a 2/8 Poisonous Beast. And he has a Black Knight and 2 Bone Mares. Now, those are the cards that the Lich King always starts with, no matter the deck. Okay? But what happens is, during the engagement, different things, on turn 1, he'll play a different card for every class. But before we talk about those individual cards, let's talk about the encounter in general, right? So like I said earlier, he has 30 health, 30 armor, and he plays that deck of cards that I just listed early in the game, right? That's what he wants to do. But on turn 7, no matter what has happened in the game, he will always equip Frostmourne, which is a 5/3 weapon. Now, this Frostmourne is different than the DK Frostmourne that we get when we play ranked or casual, right? This Frostmourne, um, on turn 7, it will remove everything on his side of the board. All the creatures will disappear, and they will be replaced with 2/6 creatures. I forgot what they're called, like Trapped Spirit or something, right? And as long as the Trapped Spirit is on board, then the weapon is immune and the Lich King is immune. That means you cannot use Acidic Swamp Boost to break the weapons. You can't use Alex Straza to bring his life down. You cannot touch him. You have to deal with the ads. Now, since the weapon is indestructible, he also doesn't lose durability. So in this, you have to limit the length of this phase as quick. You have to kill the ads as quick as possible. And this is very much similar to World of Warcraft, right? You have to manage the ads so that you don't lose too much life and can't finish the encounter. Same thing here. You got to really manage the ads, kill all the 2/6s, and limit this phase, right? So once you kill all the 2/6s, Frostmourne is destroyed, and whatever was taken away from the board before that comes back. So if he had 3 creatures on the board on coming into turn 7, he plays Frostmourne on turn 7. On turn 8, you miraculously kill all the creatures. Then those 3 creatures that were there on turn 7 come back, right? So you get rid of all the creatures. Now we're on to phase 3. Now phase 3 is where his hero power changes again, and now it's 0 mana, and it's the first thing he does every turn, and it's deal 1 damage to your face. But the catch is, every turn he adds another damage. So on turn 8, it's deal 1 damage, or the first turn of the phase 3, it's 1 damage. On the second turn, it's 2 damage, 3 damage, 4 damage, 5 damage, so on and so forth. So basically, on phase 3, it is a DPS race. It's a DPS check. You gotta bring him down before he kills you with hero power, and you still have to deal with the normal cards that he has in his deck, right? And this is like, I think that is just so cool, and it's just so similar to what a boss fight is in World of Warcraft that it's kind of cool how they've effectively made that correlation between the two. I think it's really cool. Now, let's talk about it going from a class perspective, right? As you know, well, let me show you. Let me just show you the portrait, right? We have the portrait of Arthas here, and it looks pretty cool. I mean, I think it's super dope. But let's talk about the classes and the cards that the Lich King will play for the classes, and how you can develop a strategy around these, right? So what happens is, during the encounter, on turn 1, you are always first, and then the Lich King will always play second. On turn 1, the Lich King will always play a spell that is customized for your class. So we're just going to go down the line. So for Warrior, on turn 1, the Lich King will play a spell that will give him 100 armor. So he is literally starting with 160 health, right? He has 100, yeah, 60 health. He has 30 health, he has 30 armor, and then he gets another 100 armor on top of that. So the idea here is twofold, right? Like, obviously they want you to mill him out, right? They want you to make him exhaust his 30 cards that he has in his deck, and they want you to use Dead Man's Hand or something to kind of keep you from going to fatigue, right? And then slowly draw him out of resources. That is not how I completed the thing. I used an exploit to beat it. I guess you could call it an exploit. It's been existing in the single solo player adventure for a long time, so you can catch my Warrior video to see how I did that. But there you go. It seems like that's the game plan there, because there's just no feasible way you're going to get through 160 life, especially in phase 3 when he is dealing cumulative damage every turn, right? So obviously what they want you to do is make your deck twice or 3 times the size of the Lich Kings, keep it in phase 2 or as long as possible, with keeping like 1, 2, 6 alive or something, and then just having him take fatigue damage, or at least build up a huge fatigue number, and then going into phase 3 and making him lose a huge amount of life. Now, like I said, I didn't do it that way, but that's obviously how they want you to do it. For Shaman, what he does is the Lich King puts all your creatures in your hand or in your deck have 1/1 stats. Everything, no matter what they are. If they're a 5/5, they're a 1/1. If they're a 3/3, they're a 1/1. But they do get all relevant kind of buffs and additions to them. Like, so if you play a buff on them, or if you got a Flame Tongue Totem, or if you play Bloodlust. So this is pretty cool, because obviously with Shaman, you can just go wide on the board, right? So my game plan was, well, if you're gonna give me one attack and one health, then why don't I play a bunch of the cool things that cannot that aren't good because they don't have attack. So obviously all the eggs, right? Nerubian egg, Devilsaur egg, dragon egg, you know, things of that nature. Things that have a death rattle, so I can get a bigger creature after. But since they're now one attack, I don't need to use another card as an activator to to deal damage, right? And then that's basically how I beat that with Shaman. You know, I was able to make a really wide board coming into phase 3 and, you know, just bloodlust and kill. Right? Pretty simple. Rogue, well, the Rogue one is interesting. Lich King on turn 1 will get rid of all your spells in your deck. Right? Now, Rogue is a class that's heavy on spells, and that seems kind of crazy, kind of sucks, right? But now, you can kind of build and tailor your deck around that. So if you know he's going to destroy all your spells, like maybe there's an OTK combo or some combination of creatures that if you get it early in the game, you'll be able to deal a huge amount of damage and win quickly, right? So basically what I'm saying, or what I did was I played all pirates, but I played 10 spells that cost 0 or 1, because my goal was I would want a mulligan for a 1-drop pirate, as well as a prep and a gang up, or a coin and a gang up, and then or a swashbuckler, coin, and gang up, like whatever. There's just various combinations that you can do here, and my goal was to play a gang up on turn 1 on my patches, right? And this is a little more magical Christmas land, and I actually never did it, but it didn't matter because I beat it on the first or second try with the deck. And basically what happens is I just play whatever 1-drop spell I got on turn 1 just to make use of it. Then he gets rid of all the 1-drop spells or lower, and then that means he gets rid of like 12 cards from me. So now I'm only playing with the 18-card deck, so I'm always drawing into gas faster, and I beat it really quickly, and I beat the Lich King by killing him before turn 7. Right? So because remember how I was saying turn 7 is where he changes the board or whatever. Like instead I should have rushed him down, killed him before the phases change. Right? Pretty cool. So Paladin, what he does with Paladin is he changes every creature you play. Comes when a creature dies, when one of your creatures dies, it goes to him. So if he kills a recruit, it goes to him. If Murloc dies, it goes to him, right? Whatever. If Tyrion dies, it goes to him. So my game plan was like, well, I want to make sure that I play creatures that have synergies, like Murlocs or Beasts or whatever, so that when they go on his side, they're relatively small stat-wise, but they give a lot of benefit when they're on my side, right? So for me, what I did was I went with Murlocs, as well as the Secret Keeper and what's the guy's name? Mysterious Challenger, right? And for me, my game plan was like just compete for the board early, drop a Challenger on 6, have a huge secret play, find a way to clear out the 2 6s on turn 7, and then in the final phase, after I've used all my creatures for combat or whatever, try to find anything can happen, the 10-mana spell, which is what I did, and I won off of that, and I got kind of lucky. I think I one-shot this. And I've heard a lot of people say this is really difficult, and it was difficult to do for me in my one game, but I guess I really did get lucky. But it was pretty cool. You can check that out. For Hunter, the Hunter card that Lich King plays is for every creature in your deck, you take 2 damage, right? So if you have 10 creatures, you take 20 damage. If you have 15 creatures, you die. So with that in mind, there are a couple of things you can do to kind of exploit this, right? You could build a deck with 14 creatures or uh, uh, 10 creatures. So they put you at 10 life or lower, and then you can cheat out some molten giants or something. Like that's a good, I mean, that's an idea, right? Or you can just play as little creatures as possible to mitigate the effect of it, right? So I don't know if there is a full spell hunter out there, and maybe that was what they wanted you to do, but I think that would be interesting. Instead, what I did is I ran Chaki's list, or something that was really close to Chaki's list, and it just had 3 creatures. So one of the creatures is Barnes, and then your Sarge and Sneaks. And basically, I wanted to high roll the Barnes, right? Basically, right? So this is good because I'm either taking 6 or 4 damage, right? Because I either have Barnes on my hand or I don't. So, and I get, a lot of people said this one was pretty hard too, but this was my easiest one. I think I got this on turn 1 or on the first try. I think I got this on the first try. Um, and I just, yeah, I guess I got lucky. I don't know. But, you know, you can see the VODs, the video, and you can tell me. Druid was a cool one, and I actually did it 3 times with 3 different decks, which was very fun. And the Druid one is any creature that is 3 or less cost, get rid of, right? So what I did was build a deck that was heavy on ramp, um, and it had Jade Idol and Gadget Stand, right? And my goal simply was make sure that I drew through the entire deck by the time that I could play Gadget Sand, so that I could lay out a Gadget Sand and then just play infinite number of idols, right? So that's how I built the deck. I did have like maybe 10 or 12 creatures that cost 3 or less. So when the game starts, you know, I get one of those into play, maybe. And if not, it's no big deal because on my turn 2, they're all gone. So now I'm only playing with a 22 card deck, or I'm sorry, a 18 card deck. And I was able to dig quicker, play my ramp. That was one way I did it. The other way I did it was just play very big, played Astral Visions, which is the 4 mana, discard your hand, gain 10 mana. So I played that deck, high rolled. I got, you know, I played Astral Visions on turn 4, and I top decked the Ultimate Infestation. And obviously, no matter what format it is, wherever you play Ultimate Infestation, you win, right? So just played that, and that, you know, the rest is history, right? Easy. Druid one was pretty easy to me. Warlock was interesting. The Warlock one was if you take 2 damage for every copy of a card you have. So basically, they want you to play some kind of Reno Lock or Demon Lock or something. And this was relatively easy, although I did get kind of lucky with the RNG. But you know, you can watch the VOD. It's simple. Like you can just play any good Reno Lock deck, and you'll make it. I think Reno's pretty important though. The mage one I found to be the most difficult one, and it was very challenging. And let me explain why. So the Lich King, his cheat card is opponent starts with 1 life. Straight up. So on turn 1, that's what he casts, a spell that puts you at 1 life. Now, like the Hunter one way you could do this was with Molten Giants. And then I tried to do it at first, but it's just really difficult because there's just some times where, you know what, you just don't have a ton up. And you're going to take the damage. And you know what really sucks too is like you high roll, like let's say you open up with Molten Giants in your hand. So on turn 2 you play a Molten Giant, and then he obliterates you, obliterates your Molten Giant. Your game plan's like just gone, right? So after a while I said, fuck it, like let's not do that. So I thought, well, hey, what if we abuse the quest, the spell that he casts on turn 1? So I figured I'll use Mana Bind. I'll use Cabal Lackey, the 1 mana creature that makes you play a secret from your hand for free. And I'll try to get a Mana Bind and put him at 1 immediately and kill him. So I reset the game many times to get Cabal Lackey plus Mana Bind in my opening hand. And by the time I actually did, it ended up not working because, sure, I copied a spell, uh, and I put him at 1 life, but he still has 30 armor, right? So I still have to get through 31 points of damage, and I just didn't want to go that route. So I went the other route, which should have been so obvious. I don't know why I made it so difficult. Was go with Cabal Lackey and Counterspell. So it took me about 7 games of resetting the game, just not even playing, just resetting the encounter until I ended up with Cabal plus Counterspell in hand. Counterspell his spell, so I start with 30 life, and I just used a combo OTK mage plan to beat him. And you can see my VOD, and I think the game was badass. Like, I would have probably lost that game, but I kind of made some good decisions and I won. And I think you guys should check that VOD. One thing also is remember that in this, there's no time limit, there's no rope. So you can, you can make infinite fireballs and take your time. You can kill all the minions that are on the board before going to the face, right? So check that VOD, it's pretty awesome. And the final class, which is Priest, and you know what? Like, he's got the crate. So the Lich King's secret card versus Priest is he silences your hero, so you can't emote. You can't say anything to the Lich King. That's all he does, right? So basically, Priest has no nerf. Like, versus Lich King, you can do whatever you want to do, which is pretty awesome. But the ironic thing is, Priest was the second hardest one for me to complete. And my advice to you is, if you're going to try Priest, I went with the big, easy Priest deck, right? The one that resurrects big drops, and it did work out pretty well. But I will say I played a lot of games. Like, I would say I gave it a good 5 or 6 attempts with Priest before I actually beat it. And I think I made it way too hard on myself. I think if I played just the standard control Priest list, I would have done well. Obviously, Shadow Word Horror is a card that no matter what you build, you want to play, because on turn 7, when he fills his board with 2 6s, you can remove them, all of them, immediately, right? So, yeah, so that's my breakdown of all the encounters or class encounters here versus the Lich King. I, I, I beg you to please check out my videos. I think they're pretty cool. The videos of the encounter are pretty cool. They're interesting deck ideas, and I'm sure you guys can improve on some of them, right? So please let me know in the comments of each of those individual videos, like how you beat the encounter, what you did. And thank you so much for following me on my channel. I really appreciate like the jump in views and viewership and comments that I've gotten lately. And yeah, I hope that you enjoy this content and many more things that I will produce in the future. So good luck there, guys. I hope you get your Arthas.